Wednesday, November the 10th. Sorry about no fishing report last week. I was at Grand Lake fishing Anglers in Action Championship. And, the fishing's kind of tough all over. It was tough over there at Grand as well. But, here on Table Rock and pretty much most of the Ozark Lakes, I think the bite's starting to pick up. But here on Table Rock, lake level is just about 916. It's come up about 6 inches since my last report, which was like 2 weeks ago. And the water temperature's bouncing around between 58 to 62. Starts to cool down, then we have these gorgeous days and it warms up, but looks like we got a little bit of a cooling trend coming in. Before I get into the fishing report, it's a pretty neat deal going on next week. The Johnny Morris U.S. Open is here on Table Rock, and a couple anglers are going to win $1 million in cash, plus 2 fully rigged, I think they're Z21s and Toyota trucks. So that's a pretty neat deal. For basically, it's for more amateur fishermen. A lot of the pros can't fish, but so that's going to be pretty neat, seeing somebody win $1 million. But as far as the bite, there's a couple different bites going on. The deep bite is starting to get a little bit better, as is the shallow bite. Now, most of the fish we're catching shallow. It still hadn't been much of a whopper plopper bite, and I think a lot of that's kind of gone. A guy might throw it every once in a while just to keep them honest, but the best bite shallow has been either on a jig or crankbait. And if you got, like today was a little overcast and wind, it's a good day to throw that crankbait. If it slicks off, you might have to pick up a jig. But, these Ozark lakes are just notorious for like the Spro rock crawler or wigglewort. Now there's other baits that'll work, like a Strike King 3X or, a 5X, but it's kind of hard to beat a rock crawler or a wigglewort. And depending on the watercolor, there's probably 3 rock crawler baits that I would be switching between until I figure out which one works the best. My number one would be called Stone Cold. It's got a little blue on the belly, and I've even noticed some of the crawdads have got blue on their craws and stuff right now. Another one is Phantom Green or the Phantom Red. And I don't know what the name of this one is. I should, but it's a clear with just a little bit of orange. It seems to work really good in extremely clear water. And the water's actually clearing up quite a bit from Kimberling City down towards like State Park. There's not much stain. There's a little bit of color, but not much stain, throughout the lake. We haven't had any big rains, and it seems like when we do get a rain, very little of it seems to make it to the lake. The ground is so dry. But if you go to a jig, I would use like a finesse style jig. I'm throwing a 5-fish lures, ultimate finesse jig, and a lot of crawdad colors, and one of my favorite colors is a magic craw, and I'll usually tip that with Strike King Baby Rage craw, or Big Bite, College Junior. It depends what I use for the trailer as far as how the fish are biting. If I feel the fish are biting the bait suspended, I'm going to use something with a lot of leg action. If I feel that the fish are on the bottom and I've got to work it real methodically, I like a smaller profile bait. That's why I like the finesse jig. It's got a half a skirt. But it seems like, the boat docks, 15 foot to the bank, there's been some fish, quality fish, but you got to flip a lot of docks. Other than that, as far as the shallow, I might try a spinnerbait a little bit. Just depends on the conditions. But on the deep bite, and something I'm going to get into too that's going to come into play, especially in this $1 million tournament next weekend, I'm not so sure it won't be one on an Alabama rig. And it's that time of year to start chunking and winding these. Before I get into that, I'll finish up with the jigs, but there's been a pretty good deep bite, and it's pretty deep. It's anywhere from 30 to 45 feet, depending where you're at on the lake. A lot of main lake points out on what we call the gravel runouts. where it rolls off into a channel or out at the very tips of these points. And the key is either use your structure scan or just, drag a jig around till you find that little bit bigger rock on these areas that are real smooth. That's usually where you'll get your bites. But normally the better points are where either a channel swings in or away from the bank in that area. Something I probably ought to touch on too, on a crankbait, I usually throw it on 10-pound line, FC Sun Sniper line, and if I'm flipping docks, if I feel like I got to downsize, I will go down to 12, but a lot of times I'll throw a FC Sniper fluorocarbon 16-pound line around the docks. But as far as out there deeper in that 30 to 45 feet, football jigs are working, ultimate cover jig in a 3/4 ounce or a 5/8 or 3/4 ounce football jigs. A lot of the standard colors, PBJ, green pumpkin purple, and I usually mix the trailers up between a small one or like a bigger, like a Rage Craw or a Big Bite Rojas Fighting Frog. It's got some leg action. Just depends. I kind of, just keep mixing up the trailers till I find one that they like. And another thing you can throw out there is a swing head as well. This one's got a Zoom Speed Craw tied onto it, but you can use like a biffle bug, beaver style bait, just whatever you've got the most confidence in. And those fish are getting a little bit more consistent out there deep, and it will be throughout the winter. There's going to be deep fish and shallow fish, but the deeper fish are starting to group up a little bit better. They're starting to get some fish in the center of these creeks. We've talked about it before on like a Rapaller ice fishing jig, a jig and wrap. Also, Freedom Tackle makes one that's working well for me. The jig and wrap, the 5/8 ounce usually works the best for me. And I don't vertical jig this real aggressive like a spoon. I usually fish it more like a drop shot, anywhere from 14, 17-pound line in that range. I usually use fluorocarbon. And the spoons, if the fish are aggressive, they'll bite a 3/4 ounce spoon, like a Dixie Jet slab spoon, War Eagle spoon. White's my favorite color. I usually throw anywhere from a 3/4 ounce to a 1 ounce. But these spoons are also working in some of the deeper dock stalls as well. Fish are getting grouped up. Seems to be a lot of bait starting to get, like I say, getting moved back in the center of the creeks. And the key, like always in the fall, is finding the bait. Now the Alabama rig, I hadn't been throwing it very much, but it's the time of year to be throwing it, especially to catch big fish. Normally, I'll have 2 of them tied on. This is a Flash Mob Junior by Yum. I throw a lot of different ones, but I usually have 2 on, one with blades, one without, and you just got to kind of mix it up. If there's 2 of you throwing it, I would have one guy throwing without blades and one guy throwing with, to see which one produces a little better. And normally on the baits, depending on the water clarity, but like the Pro Blue Red Pearl is a really good one, and this is a 3.3, and then this other one's called Money. It's a lot more shad color. Now normally I will run a bigger bait on the center wire, like maybe a 3.8, or even go up to a 4-inch swim bait on it. 90% of the time that's the one the fish will get, is the longer wire. As far as the head size on it, it depends how deep I'm fishing. If I'm fishing, no deeper than 20 foot, I'll usually use, 1/8 ounce heads and no weight on the dummy baits. Now, if I'm fishing, deeper than that, I might go up to 3/16 ounce. And what we're kind of looking for on that A-rig is like a lot of bluff ends where there's standing timber out there. And with the electronics that everybody's got, I run Garmin with Live Scope. I know a lot of the guys are running the Lowrance Live Target. But you can actually see if there's fish in them trees, and a lot of times you can keep an eye on that A-rig and keep it above the tops of the trees or the brush piles. In the Missouri Conservation brush piles, there's like 1,500 of them on the lake. If you don't have them, go to Missouri Conservation and you can download them all onto your unit. But that's also a good place to fish the Alabama rig. And if you see fish down in there, you can't get them to come out and bite that rig, pick up a swing head or a football jig, throw it in the same brush pile. That's getting a little bit more consistent as well. And there's still a drop shot bite as well, but I feel, the better fish probably going to come on a jig in an Alabama rig. And, if you're down in the area buying tackle too, Extreme Outdoors goes till this week. If you're fishing in that tournament, you buy something, you put your receipt in a bait bucket that they've got down there. You're going to have, I think, $300 drawings of product. I think there's going to be some Spro product, 5 fish lures, and also like a gift card to buy anything you want in the tackle store. So if you're in the area, check them out over there in Branson West, Extreme Outdoors. So, that's, like I said, I keep repeating myself, but that's a pretty neat deal. Someone's going to win over $1 million next weekend. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing.